Hey YouTube, welcome back to Dwayne's World. So do you like shopping on the secondhand market? Well, if you do, this video is for you. Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 34, here on Dwayne's World. So before I get into today's episode, which I'm very excited about, I just want to once again congratulate the winners of the 1,000 subscriber giveaway. But not only do I want to congratulate the winners, I just want to say thank you again to all of my subscribers and all of my viewers, because without you guys, Dwayne's World really wouldn't be happening. So I really appreciate all of the great support. All right, so for today's episode, I'm really excited because I was able to pick up an item that I've been wanting for quite a while, and that is a walk-behind edger. And the one I actually picked up was from a buddy of mine where he was selling it on OfferUp, and I had told him before he sold it that if anyone offers him less than a certain dollar amount, that I would pick it up for that dollar amount. So he did have a couple of buyers that were lined up, but they all fell through, so he reached out to me, and here we are today. Very, very excited about it. Now, when you're looking at these edgers, you can buy them brand new today. However, depending on the motor you get, whether you get a Briggs and Stratton motor, whether you get a Honda GX motor, you can be looking from anywhere from $700 to $900 for one of these edgers. And that was just too much money for me to want to invest because of the fact that I do not have that much curbing that I have to take care of. A stick edger, technically, is perfectly fine for my application. However, I just always had that itch for wanting a walk-behind edger, and I've always been a fan of the Mclane ones. I figured it also looked really good next to my Mclane mowers, and here we are today. So I'm very excited to be able to show you guys what I picked up and some of the things I've done to it since picking it up. So with that, let's get on to the rest of the video. Here is the latest piece to Dwayne's arsenal. It's a Mclane Edger. Now, as you guys can tell, it's not a brand new edger. I did pick it up from a buddy of mine, got a really good deal on it. He really just didn't have a need for it anymore, and I kind of figured, you know what, I always wanted one of those edgers. So I figured I'd give it a try and see how well it works out on my lawn. I don't have a whole lot of edging to do, so it might be overkill for what I have, but still, I just love the way those things look. Now, it does have the older style Briggs and Stratton motor, as you guys can see there. Now, I wish it definitely did have one of these newer Briggs. That might be something, that we could look at in the future, or maybe even adapting a Honda GX motor to it if I'm able to find one used and be able to pick one up for a good price. But I did do quite a few things to this Mclane Edger to kind of get it up to where it's at right now. And I'm going to show you guys on video what I've done so far. So I took care of some things last night. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, guys, so these are just some of the parts here I'm going to use for my tune-up on the Mclane Edger. You see some new motor oil, just because I don't know when the last time this motor had a fresh oil change. So I'm going to go ahead and swap out the oil, just some cheap insurance there. All right, so as you can see here, I do have new spark plugs. The reason why I have two was originally my plan was to go with an NGK spark plug. I'm a huge fan of NGK spark plugs. However, it was out of stock for this particular Briggs motor. So what I decided to do is pick up a Denso one, which is a good spark plug. But then I thought about it, and I thought, you know what? I remember having one of these Briggs motors in the past, and I used an E3 spark plug, and it worked really, really well. So I'm going to go ahead and swap it out with the E3.10 spark plug. I think it's going to be a really, really good match for this motor. All right, the other thing I'm going to be replacing on the Edger is the 30-inch belt. The belt looks a little bit worn and tired, so we're going to go ahead and swap it out, just again, to make sure we get this machine running the way it's supposed to. All right, and the last thing is a Briggs and Stratton air filter. Not that you couldn't have went with an aftermarket one, but the price on it was really, really good, so I decided to keep it OEM. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and remove the boot here from the spark plug. Go ahead and take that off there. All right, so now I'm going to use my 1316 spark plug adapter on my socket wrench. Go ahead and take this off here. See how bad this spark plug is. Let's take a look here. Oh, that is pretty bad. Quite a bit of carbon there. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and grab my E3 spark plug, and we'll go ahead and install this bad boy. All right, so as you guys can see here, brand new spark plug. Looks good. Definitely should really work. Help make this motor run that much more efficiently. Now we're going to go ahead and tighten it down. You don't have to go crazy. Really till it's snug is where you want to be. That feels pretty good right there. All right, now we're just going to reinstall the boot, and spark plug done. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just remove the air filter cleaner. Good there. Definitely see that it is dirty. So probably a good thing that we're going ahead and replacing it. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and open up my brand new air filter. You know, one thing I'm just thinking about as I'm actually opening this up, I'm not going to go ahead and clean the carburetor. It was running pretty well, so I think it's all right. But not only that, but these Briggs and Stratton motors definitely have a little more of a complex carburetor. So I really don't want to go through it if I don't need to. When the time comes, if I need to, I'll go ahead and clean it out or do a rebuild. But I'm just going to go ahead and add in my new air filter element. And now I'll go ahead and just reinstall the top here. And we'll go ahead and snug it down. Again, don't have to go crazy with these bolts. Just till it's snug. There, good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and use an extraction tool here to be able to suck the oil out of the motor. I find this works a lot better than draining the oil. It's a lot cleaner and does a really good job. So now I'm going to go ahead and just open up one of the ports here. It really doesn't matter which one you go with, whether you go with the front or the back. But go ahead and take a look here. Hopefully zoomed in there. Pretty black. So definitely time for a replacement. All right, so now all I'm going to do is go ahead and stick my tube in here and be able to suck out the oil. Doesn't take very much time. There's not a whole lot of oil in here. All right, if you guys can kind of hear it there. Pretty close to empty. All right, I think that's it. Nothing else is coming out. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab this here. Try not to get any oil on the floor. And now, we'll go ahead and put in our new oil. Got to show you something here. I just want to make sure my motor is level before I go ahead and start adding in my oil. And it is pretty close. So now I'm going to go ahead and add the oil. So you just want to make sure your motor is level. And the reason why is when you add your oil, once the oil starts spilling out, then you're done. You're full. That way you know you're topped off. All right, so one of the things I did do is I went ahead and grabbed one of these from the auto store. It's basically a spout for engine oil. You can use it for either a quart or a 5-quart as well. I think there's 2 different sizes there. So we're going to go ahead and try this out and see how well it works. All right, so we got it all hooked up here. Let's see how well this thing works. I don't know. Not too bad. Seems like it's working. Yeah, I think we're getting real close here. I feel like it's about to start coming out of the threads here. Yeah, I'm really close there. Yep, right there. That's good. On the cap, and we are good to go. Now done. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and remove the belt. I think what I need to start with is going ahead and removing this shield here. Then we're going to remove the pulley shield from the motor side, and I think that is going to allow us to be able to take off the belt. All right, so it looks like this bolt here is a 3/8" bolt, so I'm going to go ahead and unscrew that there. All right. All right. Got that shield off. All right, so with those guards out of the way, I think I can go ahead and just take off the belt now. We'll see. All right, so one of the mistakes I made when I was trying to take it off, so I had a little bit too much tension on the belt. I didn't realize I didn't have it in the resting position here. And then now there's a lot more slack that's on the belt. It's going to make it a lot easier for me to be able to get off. Yep, there we go. Simple enough. All right, so the belt I'm going to use to replace it is a 4L300. It's a 30-inch belt. We'll go ahead and just slide it on here. You can definitely feel it's a lot tighter than the old belt. And now all we got to do is reinstall the shields. right, there looks like there's some adjustment there. I'll have to play around with it just in case. But it looks good for right now. All right, so one of the things I did notice when taking this off is there's a small crack here. You know, I could probably go ahead and fix that, but I know you can find these fairly inexpensively as a replacement part. So I may go ahead and just reorder up a new one day. But for right now, it's going to definitely serve its purpose. All right, all good to go. All right, guys, so let me show you something right here. I am so glad I replaced this belt, because if you see there, hopefully it's focusing on my camera, that was about to snap. Now you can see all along the belt, it is frayed, but that's not necessarily going to mean you absolutely have to replace it. But that right there, yeah, good thing I took the time and replaced the belt. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and replace this blade here. We'll go ahead and see. I'm going to go ahead and stick like a screwdriver or something in there to hold the blade still so I can go ahead and back off on that bolt. All right, guys, so I went ahead and just stuck a screwdriver in there. Let me see if I can go ahead and back off on that bolt. All right. There we go. Definitely worked. All right, guys, so let me just show you. That's the old blade. That's the new blade. It's like night and day. So now go ahead and reinstall it. Kind of like the opposite. Go ahead and put that in there so it doesn't move forward when I tighten it down. Feels good. All right, good to go. All right, so it's all installed. Once again, huge difference. Lost a lot of that blade there, so it's definitely time for a replacement. One thing I did not notice about this particular Mclane at first was the fact that it actually has Zerk fittings. So I'm going to go ahead and grease these up. That way we make sure we have proper lubrication here. See if this will work. Yeah. Now I'm not exactly sure when these things are full. So I'm just going to give it a couple pumps here. We should be in good shape. All right, so that one's good. Right there. Oh, I see the grease. All right. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and just clean off the fittings. And we are good to go. All right. All right, guys, so this is the actual grease gun that I use. If you guys are curious, I'll go ahead and link it in the description. This is the one I use for my California trimmer, as well as anything that has a Zerk fitting. If you do not have one of these, but have equipment that has a Zerk fitting, you absolutely need to get one. The type of grease, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen here, for what I use whenever I'm servicing any of my machinery that has a Zerk fitting. All right, guys, so one thing I did not tackle last night, I totally forgot about, is I picked up a replacement edge guard here that's actually going to attach to the bottom of the edger here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove this bracket. I think that's going to make it a little bit easier to be able to do this replacement. All right, so as you can see, there's a couple screws here. We're going to go ahead and back those off so you can go ahead and remove that plate. All right, so the second bolt here, a little bit tougher to get to. So I'm just going to use this particular ratchet. It's going to make it a little bit easier to be able to get to that bolt. Now this thing should just come right off. There we go. All right, guys, so in order to get the old one out, I'm just taking a flathead here and just kind of pressing it out. You know, it's kind of held in with alternating teeth, as you can see there. So now, if I go ahead and just kind of press up on each of these, eventually I think it'll come out. And as you guys can see here, it is starting to make its way out. And this one is pretty much a goner. Again, somebody must have cut it off, it looks like. But now, got to get the old one out before I can put the new one in. All right, guys, so from what I can tell based on some pictures I can find online, it looks like the part here that's a little thicker at the bottom is the part that's meant to go towards the ground, meaning this top portion here is what slides into the bracket. Now, one of the things I did notice is a lot of these teeth don't really appear to be straight, so I may have to open them up slightly in order to be able to fit this piece of rubber through here. In order to make the opening bigger, all I'm doing is just taking a flathead and kind of just pressing against the side here, just to open it up and give myself a little bit more space. As you guys can see there, the teeth definitely look a little bit bigger. Just trying to get it even all the way across, so I make sure I have enough room. It's getting close, but I think I still need to open it up a little bit more. All right, so I open it up quite a bit more now, so this should definitely work. Yeah, there we go. I can already feel it starting to go in. Perfect, perfect. And all I'm going to do for right now is I'm just going to kind of line it up and make it even from left to right. As you saw there, it looks like it wants to pop off, so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and actually just tighten these down by clamping them down again. All right, guys, so I kind of played around with it a little bit more. Just keep going back and forth. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not confident now. I may have opened these up too much. So I'm just going to go back and actually see if I can tighten these down by clamping them down further. I may have a pair of pliers or something to be able to take care of that. That's really just going to help further secure to make sure that this flap doesn't come off. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do to be able to tighten this down to really clamp in this shield here is I'm going to grab a pair of channel locks. Now, originally I thought, maybe I can just use like a mallet or something like that, but I figured this might actually work a little bit better to just be able to apply a little more leverage to each of these teeth. Yeah, I feel like I can get a lot of good pressure here. I'm just going across each of these teeth here and really making sure I cinch this down. And I think this is going to work out pretty well. That ain't going anywhere. That's good. All right, so now all we got to do is reattach it to the edger. All right, guys, so let me point something out here. I was having some difficulty when I was trying to reinstall the flap here. And the reason why is because when I first installed it, this particular flap here was actually going straight. And what that would do is it would come into contact with the floor, and that's at the highest position. Meaning, once I go ahead and lower the edger, there's no way this flap is not going to give me interference and affect my ability to use the edger the way it's designed. So what I did is I went back and looked at some videos on some other edgers, and I did notice that the bracket actually should be slightly bent. So rather than be where the guard is just going straight up and down, there is a slight bend to it, and I think that's going to help. So then when I go ahead and reinstall it, this actual flap now is going to be on an angle. Meaning once I lower it, it's just going to increase that angle, and I think that's going to fix my problem. Oh, well, it fits now, being that I bent that bracket. All right, so I don't know if the bracket is just slightly bent or bent from whoever the previous owner was, but I think that's going to work out really well now. I think that has enough clearance here. I'm going to go ahead and test it, and we'll find out. All right, guys, so before I actually put the Mclane Edger to work, you know what I got to do. I got to do a mow. The dog over there is barking. He wants to see a mow as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get into some StripeAction. And what mower are we using? The Mclane, of course. Alright guys, so I did have some problems with my audio today, so again, I apologize about that. However, I want to show you guys how well the Mclane did, so let's go ahead and take a look at that StripeAction. So here we are. What do you guys think of that StripeAction? I would say that the Mclane 20-inch GR Series absolutely did its job today. That StripeAction absolutely looking on point. You know, the temperatures have dropped off about 5 to 10 degrees in the last week and a half. And I would say I'd absolutely have seen a hit to the color. You know, the growth definitely has not been as aggressive, even though I'm still using PGR. But it's probably been a little over 30 days since I threw down my last granular application of fertilizer. But I'm going to hold off for just a moment. And the reason why, well, you have to subscribe to my channel and follow my content if you want to find out that reason. And we're going to have to save that for a future episode, because right now, we're going to get in to the Mclane Edger. Alright guys, so let me be honest with everybody. This is the first time I've ever used a walk-behind edger. I've never used one. Never had the opportunity. I've always used a stick edger. That's part of the reason why I'm walking so slow here. And what's funny is in some of the shots here, it doesn't even look like the blade is turning, but trust me, it is ripping through the turf here. And that's why I'm kind of going so slow, is just because of the fact that I do not want to damage or really mess up my edge line here. I'm just trying to get comfortable with the machine. But one of the things I was unsure about was how well it would do on a turn here. And as you guys can see, I have a slight bend here in my concrete. And I was very curious how it would perform here. And I'll kind of get to my opinion on it, you know, as we go through the video here. All right, in this last video clip, I kind of went back to the very start of my edge line. Initially when I started at the straight portion of the concrete, and now I'm just kind of finishing up the last pass. Guys, so it's a little bit later in the day, but I wanted to show you guys kind of the finished result now that you've seen me actually complete the edging. So let me go ahead and drop my camera down. I want to give you guys a really good look at what this edge looks like. All right, so I'm going to kind of just walk slowly here. As you guys can see, the edger did a really nice job. You know, really be able to create that nice crisp edge. Got one little straggler right there, but very happy with the way this edger performed on my lawn. All right, so let me go ahead and turn the camera here now, just so you guys can get a different angle of what that edge looks like. All right, so now I'm going to kind of walk around the edge. Now, one of the things I will say is this edger, even though it looks pretty good from where it's at, so as I'm kind of showing you guys, this is a turn that I'm not as happy with on the way the edger performed. You know, when you kind of look at it here, it does kind of straighten out right here. But when you come up here to another bend in the turn here on my curbing, it really opens up, and I really don't like the way that looks. But on a straight line, like right here, it is looking absolutely great. Cannot complain about the way this edge line looks. I don't think I've ever had such a clean edge on my particular part of the lawn, but that's what I'm very excited about, because this edger definitely did a phenomenal job at creating that line. So within here, this is where, again, we're going into another bend, and you can see here I made a little bit of a mistake right there. It handled the turn okay, but I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably still use my stick edger around the edges here, but when it comes to actually running a straight line, I'll go ahead and use that particular edger. All right, guys, so one of the things I just wanted to mention, you know, after I went ahead and took care of the backyard here, I figured, you know what? My front lawn is where it's much more appropriate for me to use a walk-behind edger, just because of the way the curbing is, and I have actually a lot more, even though it's a much smaller lawn. Now, I know you guys have not seen my front lawn in a while, but about 5 days ago, I went ahead and actually recorded some video of the front lawn, so I want to give you guys a peek at the lawn, because I know you haven't seen it in quite a while. All right, guys, so here's the front lawn and what it currently looks like. You know, one thing that is interesting about my front lawn is it feels like it's in a different climate, just because of the fact that it tends to go into dormancy sooner and come out of dormancy later. But not looking too bad. However, this year I have absolutely had struggles with my front lawn, but not as bad as years prior. Now, one of the things I was battling quite a bit with last year was spring dead spot. And I still, this season, had some areas in my lawn that needed to be recovered. For example, if I kind of zoom down in here, this area was a big spot, and it practically took this entire growing season to fill in. All right, so as you guys can see in this area, actually the grass is starting to go dormant because it doesn't get as much of the sun and the temperatures have cooled off. This is another area here that had a big area of spring dead spot. You know, back here I had that issue as well. This has probably been one of the worst areas. However, as you guys can see here, now it's finally starting to grow in. However, just because of the fact now that we're starting to go into the later end of the season, it probably won't fully grow in for this growing season. You can see another example here as well. So overall, I would say though, my lawn has definitely come back from where it used to be. However, one of the areas up front here, which is underneath the tree, in this area, as you guys can see here, is probably one of my biggest struggle areas, and it's mainly because of the fact that I have this tree. Now, one of the things I am gonna do next year that I started to experiment with this year is just using some grass plugs to be able to help fill in, and it helped a little bit, but I just think because of the amount of shade that's in this area, I may have to kind of revisit it. I may make this flower bed bigger, but generally it has been a trouble area since I've lived in this house. So again, just wanted to give you guys a shot here of the front lawn. All right, so as you guys can see here, edges definitely can use some cleanup. Got the edger started here, and we'll go ahead and go all the way around and up the front and along the little walkway there. So with that, let's get to the edger. All right, guys, so even though it's not a review of this particular edger, you know, you guys saw me use the Ego right there at the end. I just don't want to use it around corners anymore. The Mclane works really, really well in a straight line, but I'm just not too happy with the way some of those edges look in the back where, you know, I have those turns. So I may stick to my stick edger with that. I definitely like the way it performs on a straight line. In addition to, if you ever have to establish an edge, God, the thing does such a great job. My only downfall to this particular edger is the motor. Hopefully I can find a replacement. You know, I got such a good deal on it. It definitely is worth the investment, worth being able to put a little more money into it, because it definitely is in great shape and I absolutely love it. So let's go ahead and take a look here and see how well the edges came out here on the front lawn. All right, so as you guys can see there, absolutely loving it. You know, with these deeper edges, it's really gonna allow the water to be able to get down, you know, into the soil even further. Definitely looks really, really good. Cannot complain. It's probably one of the nicest edges I've had in quite a while. You know, I kind of botched it right here at the end, but it'll grow back. It definitely looks good. Cannot complain. I think it did a phenomenal job and probably will be my go-to edger here on the front lawn. All right, guys, so I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. It was a lot of fun. I really love doing these videos. As you guys know, I'm a DIYer. I like to tinker around with stuff. The one important message I want you guys to take away from this video is I think sometimes people think you always have to buy something that's brand new. And you don't. You know, there's a lot of good stuff that's on the secondhand market. You just got to know what to look for and what's appropriate. One of the things I will always say is if a deal is too good to be true, you should really question that. All right, and number two, if you're not sure on how to work on your reel mower, watch my videos. That's why I do these things, to be able to help you guys out. And that way you can get the mower of your dreams and not have to necessarily break the bank. And with that, as always, be excellent and party on.